9, 5, 0.
Welcome to the 950 Lounge Show. Hosted by Kevin KP Pryor, the LeBron James of the radio game. The amazing Steph Pearl. The extremely hilarious Rodeo. Mike the moderator. And of course, Backstage Ed.
9, 5, 0.
You are listening to the best team in radio. Where else would you want to be?
Top of the morning. You know what that means. You know what that be. After that great introduction, you know where you're at. It's the 950 Lounge Show. My name is Kevin KP Pryor. My brother Rodeo, Mike the moderator, is holding it down in the back. And we have a special guest, a young lady that hails from Boston, Beantown. We won't hold that against her. She does so many things. She gets everything out of her 24. Actress, image consultant, journalist, and media personality, a.k.a. the Life Genie. Welcome in her maiden voice, the superstar herself, Miss Samantha Bessudo, Drucker. Good morning, Samantha. How you doing today?
Good morning, Kevin. Good morning, Rodeo. Thank you.
Good morning, Samantha.
Happy Sunday to you and all of your viewers and listeners. I'm just delighted to be here with you all.
Great to have you.
Yes, we can't appreciate even more. Let's jump right into it. Obviously, as we're doing this conversation, it's a war brewing between New York and Boston. Go Knicks. But you're from Boston.
I'm originally from Boston. Now,
Yeah.
I've been a New Yorker for 35 years.
Oh, okay, then you're part of us now.
Counts
Oh,
now.
We got the trade.
okay.
The trade's been won. But talk about growing up. You do so much, right? And when I think of you and prepping for this interview, you're somebody that is. You get everything out, like I mentioned in my intro. You get everything out. You're 24. When did this start for you as a child?
So I have I'm first generation born in the States. So I came with two highly educated, overachieving immigrant parents. So the message was work your ass off, study.
Yeah.
And so there was a lot to live up to. I guess what you call one of those New England preppies. So I was on that track, prep school. And I literally grew up across the street from Harvard Yard. Like, not kidding you, across the street from the yard. And I was like, I don't want to go. I was invited to apply. I didn't want to go. I wanted to get the hell out of Dodge.
Yeah.
So I went to NYU instead, and I had all the options, but I wanted the big bad city.
Yeah.
And so I came and I stayed, and it was amazing. And I built a dance studio as my first business. Till my knees blew out. And so I started out in life as an actress dancer and, did professional theater a little bit. But I did a lot of dancing, ballroom and Latin, especially Latin. That was
a little merengue action.
Yeah, it was my claim to fame. I was the Wepa Wednesday girl for Les Poulets back in the day.
Nice.
Going back to the 90s now. And then I couldn't dance at the level I wanted to dance at anymore. Athletes don't last forever.
Yeah.
So I went back to Boston for a little bit to reinvent myself and learn some new skills. So I learned how to be a stylist. I learned how to be a makeup artist, and I really went wild with the makeup artist endeavor that really took me to some interesting places, and I met some interesting people. And then I took my etiquette skills and my fashion skills and my makeup skills, and my mother was a fine artist, so I grew up painting. So makeup to me was like a cross between painting and sculpting.
Yeah.
And I liked the impermanence of it, that you wash it off and it's done. I kind of like that. And some people don't. They're like, all that work for nothing, and then you wash it off, and it's start a new day. And so I took all of that, and I looked around, and I said, oh my God, like society has fallen apart. Nobody says please and thank you anymore. Like the basics are gone.
Yeah.
And I started to think about humanity as a whole, and I was like, wow, what would the planet look like if everybody was their A game? Like if everybody got a chance to develop themselves into the best version of themselves with nurturing, with caring, with guidance to achieve their dream and become the best version of their self, what would the world look like?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be an image consultant. And I just I had like $100 to my name. I printed up some stationery, wrote my own press list, licked some stamps, went through the yellow pages. And yeah, I'm taking you back. And it was a success. Like overnight, I got, newspapers in the Boston Globe and the Herald and Namor Delaney over at Fox 25 when she was there, Fox 25 Boston. All of a sudden, press begets press, and I started to get some traction. And then the New York Times came calling. And then about a year or 2 years later, I had no choice but to move back to New York, which was that was my aim all along.
I mean, you wasn't tied. You wasn't tied up to come back and gag to New York. You said I had to go back to New York.
No, I had to go back to meaning like my dastardly plan worked.
Yeah.
I reinvented myself in the quiet of Boston and then moved back to New York when it was right. It was the right moment. And I had the press and the traction and the clientele to warrant moving back. But it was part of my plan. I never expected the front page of the Sunday New York Times,
which was very big at one point, like
business section.
They would never understand that, but that was a big thing.
I can barely add 2 and 2 together, right? Like I didn't even have a stock portfolio at the time. What am I doing on the front page of the New York Times Sunday business section?
How did I get here? Like
I was like a how did I get here moment.
But you know what, Samantha, I will say this, and again, we're talking to Samantha Bessudo Drucker, book author extraordinaire, and we'll get into that more often later on. But the one thing about you, and you even said it like just from growing up, coming to New York, going to school, having to go back, you're not afraid to pivot. You're not afraid of the moment. There are people who will say, wow, I got $100, right? I gotta just huddle down and just hold this and spend these dollars wisely. But you're somebody, and again, this free spirit, the mentality that the pivot tomorrow, I might be in this situation now, but tomorrow brings better joy and opportunity. Talk about that mindset, because I obviously, you glanced over it so eloquently, but that's a major step when you go to school and then you do all and quote unquote do all the right things, but then you're in a situation where like, I got to make a change. Talk about that.
So I think I'm a survivor, and I grew up in a very tumultuous household. I'm going to put that elegantly. It was tumultuous. I grew up always being told that I couldn't do this or that because I was a girl, or that I wasn't important enough because I was a girl, or that I was, I don't know, too short, too fat, too dumb, too whatever. Like I was never enough.
You didn't qualify
for anything. In New England, and where I never even met anybody that looked like me until I went to NYU. Really. So I never met another Sephardic Jew outside my family until I went to NYU. So I didn't fit in. I'm used to not fitting in. And I think I came out a little extra because I was always told that I wasn't enough. And you know what? I'd rather be a little extra than basic. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
So that was like a lesson I learned recently. But like we were talking earlier about trauma, and things happen. Markets crash. People get divorced. Emergencies happen. Like my image consulting firm that was based on Wall Street, because that was most of my clientele, which was interesting because between the dot-com bubble and the Wall Street clientele, most of my clients were men for a long, long time, but I'll circle back to that. But at the end of my, not the end, but a really dark moment in my life. The market crashed. I got separated. I got divorced. I had a health emergency. Then I had a heart attack for 5 days, and nobody believed that I was having a heart attack.
You was having the Fred Sanford. You was having multiple heart attacks, and they just say, "Oh, you just sit down and have a."
They're like, "Oh, honey, you're just stressed. You're young. You're fit. You're female. Here, have some Klonopin." Thank God I didn't take that.
Yeah.
And I had to advocate for myself. So I went from like it took 5 days, 4 doctors and a dentist
For
to
Right.
believe that I was having a heart attack.
5 days.
And we've got a little echo going on. Do you hear the echo? I hear a little echo. But so I had a heart attack, and then just 8 weeks after that heart attack, which I said was for 5 days, I was ripped. I was still an athlete. I was running 5K just to wake up in the morning.
Right.
And they're like, "Oh no, you're not having a heart attack." And it wasn't until my 41st birthday that I took an angiogram that I had to fight for.
Yeah.
Because they're like, "Oh, let's just give you a heart monitor and you can come back next Monday." I'm like, "No." I made the appointment. I took time out of my business day, and you have me wearing gym clothes and my sneakers in public. Okay. So I'm just going to sit pretty in your waiting room until you put me on that treadmill.
Yeah.
Sometimes you got to advocate for yourself.
Yes.
And so my advocating for myself is ultimately what saved my life.
Wow.
So I woke up on my 41st birthday. I go and they're like, "Oh, honey, you're young, you're fit, you're female, you have no signs, everything's perfect. EKG, and the pulse and the pressure, you're fine. You'll be out of here by 4 p.m. And we're just going to, send you home with some Plavix. You'll be all good." And I woke up and I was like, "Look, doc, today's my birthday. So you tell your bartender to juice me up, and do not let me look at my heart on your monitor, or I will pass out on your table and then you'll have another problem." So I woke up, the doctor came in and he goes, "Honey, I don't know how to tell you this, but you're an angel and I don't know how you're still alive."
Wow.
The only scientific explanation I have for you is that because of your lifelong endeavor at athletics, your heart developed other passageways through which blood to flow. And I've never seen a heart like yours. I've never seen a heart as strong as yours. How you're still here, I don't know. You were blocked on both sides, 50%. I had to put 3 stents in you immediately.
Wow.
And I was like, "Whoa, well, thanks for the birthday gift, doc. I appreciate it." And I was like, "Great. When can I when can you bust me out of here? Because I got a show I got to host the next morning."
Things to do. Yeah.
I'm theater trained. You asked me to host a show. I'm there on
The
time.
show must go on.
That's right. And he's like, "Honey, do you realize you just had heart surgery?" And I was like, "Yes, I realize that. And I appreciate you. I do. But if I can't do the things that I love and be there for the people that are counting on me, and if I can't follow my passions, then you should have just left me on the table."
Right.
So I need to be on set at 11 a.m. with my TV face on, and you're going to bust me out of here, or I'm just going to go. The choice is yours. He's like, okay. We'll get you out of here early tomorrow morning. So that is my thing. And then, 8 weeks after that heart attack, Superstorm Sandy happened.
Wow.
And that rendered me homeless. And my business gone overnight.
Hold that thought there, Samantha. Hold that. Because again, you just adversity just keeps you just throw it off. It was a heart attack. Again, being a woman, being that you're having multiple heart attacks and still producing and moving around, it says a lot because at 41,
one heart attack that lasted 5 days.
Right. At 41, you had almost a rebirth, and it happened on your birthday. So from a standpoint, again, another life's pivot that, you were still moving, and thank God you were in shape and you had that dance background and that love for fitness, because you're right. But from a standpoint of life, that was a rebirth.
That's
you
right.
know, on
I
your
never,
birthday. Yeah.
I never take a day for granted.
Yes.
Like, I'm so thrilled when I wake up in the morning and I'm like, oh my God, I'm still here. I
Mhm.
got stuff to do.
Yeah.
So that's sort of my mindset, but I'm used to, because I guess of my early formative years, having to work so much harder than the next kid. Also, I'm dyslexic. So I was always working harder, working harder, working harder. And I think that discipline stayed with me. And then my appreciation, because I have always been trying to build the life that I want for myself.
Right.
And I never took the safe road.
Yeah. The
And
road is
so,
bumpy like cobblestone. But we got to take a break. I want to come back and dive into that homeless thing because, again, that's another pivot. I mean, my goodness. I mean, if I'm laying on my rent a couple of days, I start getting the hives. So we're going to take a quick break. Going to keep this conversation going. Samantha Bessudo, Drucker, 950 Lounge. Don't go nowhere.
And let's go for it. Go.
We're back on the ride, 950 Lounge, still in the middle of our great conversation with Miss Samantha Bessudo, Drucker. Again, I'm just going to call it the lifestyle genie because she do so many things and we don't have time. We just want to get into this great story. So to recap from what we were talking about, you had this heart surgery. You didn't know you was having a heart attack, blockage in the whole bit. You pretty much threatened the doctor to let you out or you was going to hammer him. Then Sandy happens and you lose your home. Kind of dive into that.
yeah. So yes, I got out of the hospital. I showed up on set on time, and 8 weeks later, I went for a jog, and it was 8 weeks later. Yeah, and then Superstorm Sandy happened, and overnight, my building was done.
Wow.
And I found myself with a collapsed business, a divorce that was killing me financially, and no place to live, and not a whole lot of money in my pocket at that moment, and alone in New York City. And it takes a village. I thank God I got friends, but there were some nights that were rough.
Yeah.
I just stayed up all night and just drank coffee all night, because that was the safest option for me. And then I had some friends that were like, yeah, you can stay here and then stay there. And I'll lend you my apartment. And that saved me. And I'm grateful for my friends. It does take a village. So, nurture your friendships.
Yes.
Nurture your friendships and give the love that you receive.
Right.
Well, they always say you really don't know who are your monocule friends until situations that happen that, have an effect on your life. People always come around you when things are good, but when things are bad, that's where you start to see people that you thought was in your corner dwell away. It's like your cancer. No disrespect. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, that happened. And that happens to single women a lot, especially when they get divorced. And if they had a big career, I had a big career.
Man, we have it too now. We ain't far behind you.
It disappear. You wake up, all of a sudden, all those friends, all
Yeah.
gone, disappear. You can hear crickets.
Yeah.
And
That's right.
right. So I was like, all right, well, I'm just going to reinvent myself because I got my family behind me and I'm a Bessudo. I'm not going to give up until the day I die. And so we have the opportunity each day to reinvent ourselves, to start a new story, to just keep going. Because seriously, what is the alternative? the alternative is just you waste your life that is so precious.
Right.
None of us know how many days we have,
Yeah.
especially after a heart attack. So I'm going to make the most of it, and I'm going to juice every single day. And no matter what happens to me, I mean, broken bones, divorces, whatever life throws at me, it wasn't easy. I'm not saying I wasn't crying hysterically at
Of course.
moments.
You're human.
I just keep pushing through. Unbreakable and unstoppable.
Yeah.
That is my mindset. I had a coach that taught me that, and it stuck with me. Unbreakable, unstoppable.
The hero is within, obviously, again, and we live in times where people are looking for somebody, the Jalen Brunsons of life, put on the cape and save the day. The hero comes from within. And again, like we mentioned in the preset, you can have bad moments. You're human. You are entitled to that. You're made of flesh and bone. But if you allow those moments to become days and weeks and months, you're the only one losing, because there's 1,000,001 stories in Naked City, and you're just one of them. So you can get off the mat. You can choose to get off the mat or stay on the mat. Right. But as you live in New York City, Samantha, which is not such a fortunate thing, it's kind of unfortunate in a way, but people just walk over people when they see them laying there. And that's, again, it's not human, but I use that as a diagram to say you have to get off the mat. You have to be the hero within. I think you've shown that, obviously, through your life. And anybody is successful, I'll find somebody successful, and I'll show you a story about their resiliency and their wherewithal to become great. So again, continued success. I want to dive in and pivot.
Yes.
You have to. Go, sorry.
I just wanted to say, you can also turn your turmoil into a good thing. You can flip it, like the heart attack. So since then, for 12 years now, I have been raising money for the American Heart Association.
Blessings.
I've been a spokesperson for them before. I run their Wall Street 5K. I just came back from the Heart Ball in Dayton, Ohio. Nice. I raised a bunch of money, and they gave me their most valuable team player shout out, and I was honored. I was just happy to keep raising money and awareness, because heart disease is the #1 killer of women in this country. Just want to say. And now we can pivot.
No doubt, which is a great thing. Again, we're talking to Samantha Bessudo, Drucker, the everything, actress, entrepreneur, the whole bit. But the one thing that you are and you're showcasing now is your new book, 90 Days to Husband Number 2. Now, you mentioned you had husband number 1, and unfortunately, he was trying to bankrupt you and all that other stuff. So we're not going to talk about him. But husband number 2, and you wrote a kind of like Big said, a doctrine on how to make it work, never get high on your own supply, commandments. Talk about how you got to this book, and the feeling that, hey, through that pain that you went through in your first marriage to find love again, and now to share it with the world.
So my new book, 90 Days to Husband Number 2, 10 Rules to Find Him, came out of an interview that my editor sent me to do during Fashion Week. She's like, there's a new dating app out there. It was created by the godfather of all internet dating, who invented it back in the 90s. I need you to go, because you're the only one on staff that writes about affairs of the heart. I need you to go interview Joseph Shapira, who created JDate, then made one for every single demographic, and then sold the whole thing to one of the big 2. Mm-hmm. So then he retired. Some kids came to his office, and they're like, we want an app. So he made an app so the next generation could date and mate. So I met the guy. I spoke to him, and I was like, you know what? I dig what you're doing. So instead to write a blurb that no one's going to read or care about, I am going to do this for you, because I am packing and I am moving to Cartagena, Colombia, to open up a beauty bar in 90 days from now. So I am willing to live in 2 realities at the same time. I will either move to Cartagena and start my new chapter and start my new business, or I will find husband number 2. So I passed in my phone and I'm like, okay, now you're going to put your chutzpah where your app is and you're going to sign me up and I'm going to give you 90 days of coverage and I'm going to call it 90 days to husband number 2 because my editor lets me do what I want. So that's how
He
it's
better.
started.
He have a problem if he didn't. He have a one.
You know they got a show behind that now.
I know,
90 days of marriage.
Yes. Except their show is a little different. I would like to do the reality version of my show. I actually tried to pitch something like it maybe 15 years ago, 20 years ago, called 13 Dates, but it was slightly different. But anyway, so I wrote this and I was like, oh my God, why did I tell my people they needed to have a sense of humor? I was like, oh, I need to like take my own advice. What a bummer. I was like totally about to like throw my journalistic integrity out the window and start making stuff up because I did not want to go on any more horrendous dates. I was like, oh, okay. I told my readers they needed to have a sense of humor. Okay. So here we go. So I was all right. One final swipe. And I was like, oh, what's that? That's a grown-up. I was like, okay. So I did the thing that I'd never done in my life. I made the first move and I clicked the like button, hoping that my phone would not explode. And I met my second husband.
Incredible. You was down to your last strike in baseball terms and you hit a home run. And look where it took you to another level. And again, and you obviously the expert with this. A lot of women, and we hear these stories about, first dates and where women should go. As a woman, professional, check all the boxes. Is it okay for women to make the first step? Obviously, it worked for you. Do you kind of suggest that women do that more often? If you see something, attack it. Your thoughts?
So, okay, yes, I did press the like button on a dating app, which is maybe different coming up to a man in a public place.
Okay.
Which I won't do because if we are out in the wild, you better be man enough to hunt me down. I know that sounds so politically incorrect.
I love it. I love it.
Canceled for saying that.
we want Samantha.
If you really want me, you're gonna have to like muster up your macho and walk across the room.
Right.
Say hello.
Now, Samantha, you don't want like an Ike Turner. I told you to sing the song the way I told you to sing it.
Right, exactly. No, none of that. And
no, none of that.
We had 6 dates, and I indeed left the country. And I made him come run a bit. So I made him like send a ticket for me to come back. Right. And then after spending, the holidays became a couple months and I'm I got to go back and start my life now. Right. Like, no, I want to build a life with you. Wow. And I was like, well, then, you know what you have to do because I'm not a shack up kind of a gal. Yeah. So I also talk about that in my book. Do not be a shack up kind of a gal. You are a free agent until there's a ring on it. And you should enjoy
because you're saying in so many words that women need to know their worth.
That's right.
If it's funny you say that. We had a Heather Hunter on the show, and for those who don't know who Heather Hunter is, you Google her. I'm not going to tell you who Heather Hunter is, but she mentioned that know your self-worth, and she mentioned the men she worked with they protect their candy. Her words, not mine. So from a standpoint, you're saying that women need to why buy the cow if you're giving the milk away for free, right?
That's right. And I know that we live in a world now where women got their own money, their own career, their own education. We're allowed to vote. We're allowed to drive. We're allowed to do stuff, right? So we can buy a house if we can. We are basically free, even though we still don't make as much as men in most comparative jobs. But we are essentially free. Yeah. And with that, for some reason, I don't know whether it's the backlash, men don't like that we can go to school and vote and make our own money and drive. I don't know what this is all about. But for some reason, that means you can't all open the door for us,
Right.
or offer to take a package so that I don't have to carry it while I'm wearing high heels.
Right.
Or you think that I'm going to get all dressed up and wear high heels and spend, go to the salon and put it all together and then run across town to meet you somewhere at a restaurant, and then you expect me to pay half the check? That's
Moderator, jump in, please. Love to hear your opinion.
Listen, I'm thoroughly enjoying this, right? So very captivating. I'm curious to know. I know life, many things. There's many angles to life, but one of the biggest, if not the biggest angle to life, is the educational aspect.
Yes.
So throughout all of this, can you tell us something that you learned about yourself that was previously undiscovered?
I learned in my process of life that I'm a hell of a lot stronger than I ever dreamed I could be, and that I can essentially survive pretty much anything, and I do not quit. And just because some man said, "Oh, I thought you were blonde," I'm like, "No, that's the other woman you sent a message to on the first date." I mean, you just keep going, and I will not tolerate, because I don't have the time. I don't have the bandwidth to tolerate, especially at this point in life, a man who is not going to value me 100%. Now, I do believe, and because it's really crucial, that you have a sense of humor. And the joy of dating is that it gives us a moment in our lives to connect to another human being, which is so rare these days. And it might not be a love connection, but that doesn't mean you can't have an interesting, funny, intelligent conversation with another human being that you don't know, and make a connection. And maybe you'll be friends, and maybe you won't. And maybe it's a love connection, and maybe it isn't. And that doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
That you are going through the process of discovering people, what you want, what you don't want. And to save you time, rule number 1 in my book is know what you want. Because if you don't know what you want, this is going to be complicated. So you have to know what you want for yourself and write it down on paper, in pen, with your own hand, so that there is a mind-body tactile connection to the thing. Because when you ask the universe for what you want in that way, it has a way of listening. So you got to really
hold on, Rhoda. We got to take a break. I
Yeah.
want to come back to that, because a lot of women, as you say, no, go for what you want, but is going for what you want realistic? Gonna come back. Samantha Bessudo, Drucker. It's 950 Lounge. Don't go nowhere.
Thankful for another day. Brush, floss, and comb? Check. Coat, bag, and keys? Check. Ready to go? Ready to start that morning? Only thing missing?
9, 5, 0.
Welcome to the 950 Lounge Show. Hosted by Kevin KP Pryor, the LeBron James of the radio game. The amazing Steph Pearl. The extremely hilarious Rodeo. Mike the moderator. And of course, Backstage Ed.
9, 5, 0.
You are listening to the best team in radio. Where else would you want to be?
We're back on the Ride 950 Lounge, having a fantastic conversation with our new best buddy, Miss Samantha Bessudo, Drucker, and obviously her book, 90 Days to Husband Number 2. We've been talking about the journey, and we're now really diving in the book. When we went on our break, you mentioned right out the gate, you talk about women know what you want and go for what you want. But I want to tap in, Samantha, when that woman says, yeah, like, I noticed like the Kevin Samuels mentality. Yeah, that woman, I want a man making 6 figures, and I want this, and this, but you don't know what a salad fork is. You know, obviously you don't know how to be classy instead of just showing all the assy. How can women who know what they want but are not prepared for that moment for the things they're trying to achieve and get. Your
I
thoughts?
love that you asked that question. I actually have a chapter in my book called What Makes You So Special?
Mm.
And I mean it as a double entendre because all the time I hear women saying, while they're chewing gum with their mouth open, whatever, talking about how they want a man who makes six figures and he's got to be all this and all that. And I'm thinking, well, what are you offering?
Right.
Now, I'm not trying to be cruel. I'm
Mhm.
really, really not. I am saying be objective. And I'm not saying you shouldn't love yourself as you are. You should. Um, I was never able to learn that lesson, but you should. Um, so, but I do love myself as a human being. But if I want X, Y, and Z as a partner, I need to take a look at myself and say, am I going to attract X, Y, and Z as I am at this moment?
Yeah.
And so maybe I need to go to the gym. Maybe I need to take a class. Maybe I need to develop myself. Maybe I need to watch my P's and Q's and work on my table manners, my dining etiquette, my social graces. Maybe I need to make a list of what attributes do I need to work on? And what attributes do I have that have value?
Mhm.
Am I educated? Am I kind? Am I good with my hands? Am I generous? Am I smart? Am I funny? What am I bringing to the table? Am I a good cook? Like you got to know what your values are, what you are bringing to the table, what you have to offer a partner,
Right.
and be clear about what you want, and then elevate yourself. You got to get your A game going on. And I'm not just talking about 10 pounds.
Right.
I'm not just talking about eating your vegetables. I'm talking about the whole thing.
Right.
Do you make your bed in the morning? Are your sheets fresh? Is your home clean?
Your
Does
bathroom clean. Yo, I'm so glad you beat me to it. Cause listen, I'm not in the market no more, but I done been in some humdingers where like, wait a minute. And Samantha, just to give you a little bit about me, I am probably the most like, little things bother me.
Shallow.
No, you use shallow. I know my worth. Right. So little things bother me. And it could be so small as, listen, we're all human, but if we go to breakfast or a lunch date and, obviously after the date, you don't necessarily pop a mint in your mouth. Little things like that bother me. Now, again, and I'm glad you mentioned in your book, because I think ladies need to realize that there's nothing wrong with telling somebody, this is what I want, this is what I require, this is what I demand. I tell it to my nieces all the time, but you got to bring it to the table. You got to bring something to get something. And I'm so glad that's in your book.
Yes, you have to take a hard look at yourself. Are you smart? Are you funny? Are you a great cook? What are your talents? And where are your shortcomings? So that you go in with knowledge. And there's a lot that you can do to get yourself together so that you are at your A game. I'm not just talking about eating your vegetables. I'm talking about a clean house, some fresh sheets, and a few things in your fridge that you can whip up in a moment's notice just in case you got some company.
Yeah.
And all of that, and how you dress and your nails and your hair and presenting your best self. Put your best self forward, but not only for 5 minutes, not only the day that you got a date. I'm talking about every single day of your life. In this 90-day challenge, I strived to be my best A game I could in every aspect of my life. And it's exhausting, I got to tell you, but finding the partner that you dream of, that's priceless. So that's some effort, that's worth some growing pains, that's worth some taking a hard look at yourself, that's worth growing, that's worth everything.
And that's page 20 in the book, one of my favorite pages.
I
Beauty
like
appointment style matters.
I like to bring something. We have a lot of people, we have a lot of expert people talk about relationships and what you should do, the do's and the don'ts. Supposing somebody follows your book to the T and still the results are not in their favor, what would you tell that person?
Well, if they have read my book and followed it to the letter and they haven't had a result, I would say there's a disconnect going on somewhere. There's either you're not quite at your A game yet, or you're looking in the wrong places, because every animal has their habitat, which is why after you figure out writing out what you want for yourself, you have to write out who your ideal partner is. And it's your fantasy, so run wild with it, right? So every animal has their habitat. Once you know whom you seek, it's much easier to reconstruct or rearrange your social calendar so that you're going to meet that kind of person. Like the alcoholics are at the bar, the fitness buffs are at the gym. It's not a mystery. You know, the tech guys are at the tech shows and the car buffs are at the car shows. And, you know, and the do-gooders of the world are, you know, at the animal shelter or the soup kitchen, whatever. You got to figure it out what you want. And there's a difference between values and compatibility and chemistry. They are three totally different things. Your values are like your core beliefs, like your spiritual relationship to the universe, all of that. Your compatibility is like, oh, I like to go to the gym in the morning and I'm a pescatarian. Okay, that's, you know, that's, I like to watch movies. That's compatibility.
Like rodeo, that's like Uncle Fred said, how to be a player. If your game's strong, you can't go wrong. So if your game is strong and you putting in the work, can't go wrong. Go ahead, Mike.
Chemistry is something else. So if you've done this book and you still have not found somebody, there's a disconnect happening somewhere. Or you haven't met them yet.
Samantha in the back. Samantha got a disclaimer. You putting your money on that book, right? So I put my bottom dollar on that book.
Let me. This is my opinion. Now I have to preface my statement with saying that I have not gone through your book in the manner of which I would like to, right? So, but I have had a chance to, you know, little excerpts here and there, quick skim here and there. This is my opinion, and I'm wondering how you feel about this. As much as your book is about preparatory in those 90 days to find that individual. I have found that the more egregiously outlandish requests that individuals have in relationships are often, and in business, right, are often indicative of their drift away from being centered. And a lot of the things that an individual needs to do, because I think if men read this book, it's just turn it around, right? The same corrections are necessary for men as they are for women. So maybe getting your hair and nails might not be indicative to the three of us, at least not for hair. It may be something different that we would put in place. So what I found from what I skimmed, as much as this is 90 days, there's a lot in your book that if someone was to follow would help bring them back to center.
100%. 100%. It is never wrong to get some exercise. It is never wrong to clean your home. It is never wrong to put yourself together right and be clean and give yourself some self-care and some self-love and some grooming. That's never wrong. It is never wrong to put a smile on your face. And even when it's scary, get out of your home and face the planet with a smile. Even when that's scary. I know, especially in a post-pandemic world, some people never leave their house anymore. So yes, I agree with you. There's a lot of things in my book that are so that you can be at your center, so that you can get a better understanding of yourself, so you can get clarity. And especially if you've been married once, why on earth would you want to do that again? And so I talk about that in my book. You know, like, why would you want to do that again? Well, it's because you're not the same person in your 30s or 40s or 50s that you were in your 20s or 30s when you got married in the first
First
place.
time.
You're not the same person now on a cellular level that you were when you were 20. So, and we live longer than we used to.
Yeah.
So let me ask this while it's hot on my brain.
Yeah.
Someone was to take your book,
Yes.
follow it for the 90 days,
Yes.
and said at the end of the 90 days, what the person that I found that really loves me, because of your book, I found me. Would you consider that a victory?
100% that is a victory, because so many people don't know who they really are, or cannot accept who they really are, or don't feel like working at who they are or who they want to be.
Right.
And it's okay at any chapter of life to take a deep breath and reinvent yourself. Even if you got to go back to school, take a class, you want to learn to speak Spanish, you want to learn to speak French, you want to learn to act for film and television. You don't think I have a coach? Of course I have a coach. I went back to school in the pandemic. I was like, okay, I'm going to take myself back to school. Now that I've written this book, now my next project is to go back to school. And I went back to school, and then I got myself a coach, an amazing coach, Kevin Scott Allen. Who was just a star of American Primeval. And I went to take a business class at HWC, which is about the business of the entertainment industry. So all of these things were helpful. And is it scary and daunting to be at another phase of life, midlife, let's say, and go back to school? Of course it's daunting, but you got this. You can do this. The mind is just a muscle. And as to what you were saying earlier, Mike, I can prove that this book works because I have proof. I've had 20 years of clients as an image consultant, even though most of them were men who would come to me and say, oh, I want the next this, the next job, the next whatever. And I was like, okay, sure. Why are you really here?
Yeah.
They're like, well, I have some problems with dating and da, da, da. So it's not just women that I hear these complaints about.
Right.
Men have problems too. And so I was like, okay. And I would make them do the exact same things that I prescribe in my book. I was on top of them.
Yeah.
And in about 90 days, we got it together.
Yeah.
And I've gotten many, many people married within, if not 90 days, they found the person in 90 days. And maybe they found the person in 6 months. There was that too. But did I get a lot of people married who are still married with children now? Yes. And that is probably one of the best deeds I have done in my lifetime.
That's a beautiful thing. Samantha, we're coming up on the end of this thing. This has been fun. We need to have the conversation because there's so much more to the surface. I think what your book is almost, obviously, we know about 90 days, but it's a doctrine of life. If you're not happy with something, change it. And I think that's what you do. You challenge people to look in the mirror first and then become better for what you're trying to achieve. Where can people get the book, 90 Days to Husband Number 2? Where can get the book at? More information about you and everything else like that.
Oh, that's so wonderful. Thank you. So my book is available in hardcover. My book is available in hardcover, in paperback, in digital format on Amazon. It is also available on my website at SamanthaBessudoDrucker.com. And I don't usually do this, but for your listeners, I will, because I had so much fun today with you guys. If you go to Samantha at socialimage.net, that is my email. If you need a coach to get you through my program so you can find your mate, I am willing to offer my private coaching services, which I don't usually offer anymore, to your audience.
Samantha, that's a beautiful thing. Mike, I don't know if you got a chance. You can put down the bottom there real quick. Samantha, can you repeat that again?
Sure. My book is available on Amazon.com. That's 90 Days to Husband Number 2, 10 Rules to Find Him. My website is SamanthaBessudoDrucker.com, Or if you want to contact me directly, you can go to samantha@socialimage.net, and I will help you if I can.
Well, again,
Even though you're going on for husband number 8, it still works.
Practice makes
it's
perfect.
just a number. Don't worry about it.
It's just a number.
Samantha, this has been really fun. Thank you so much for coming. Again, continued blessing success on the book. As you see in your post, it's hunting season now. So, ladies, the cold winter's over in the north. You know, show a little something and go be successful and go win.
Yeah, putting out there some bear traps. Can't move my leg. Gotcha.
It's over backs.
That's why I've got the rotation schedule chapter at the back. But we can talk about that next time.
Samantha Bessudo.
They need your book in a court of divorce. You sure you want to do this? Chapter 8.
Thank you so much for joining us. Let's take a quick break to keep this thing moving. The best team in radio, 9 Lounge. Where else you want to be?
Thankful for another day. Brush, floss, and comb? Check. Coat, bag, and keys? Check. Ready to go? Ready to start that morning? Only thing missing?
950.
Welcome to the 950 Lounge Show. Hosted by Kevin KP Pryor, the LeBron James of the radio game. The amazing Steph Pearl. The extremely hilarious Rodeo. Mike the moderator. And of course, Backstage Ed.
950.
You are listening to the best team in radio. Where else would you want to be?